Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to your January 2020 Astro Update. It's Serena here, and I'm a Sagittarian too, so this is going to be something that I'm interested in. The month begins with the Sun in Capricorn. We're coming off of a glorious solar eclipse on Christmas or the day after, and that is actually in conjunction with Jupiter, the ruler of Sag. And so the sun is in that second house of earned income. Can we say cha-ching? I knew we could. And so this can be a time when money matters are feeling very positive. Maybe there have been things, some developments that have occurred in the remaining days of December, going into this time of the sun in Capricorn, which is going to be in that second house until the 20th of the month. And the sun is just like positive vibes being, given to your money sector, especially your personal way of earning money. The eighth house, the opposite house, is also a money house, but it's connected to other people, and therefore there's not that same sense of direct personal kind of connection to it. There's more control when you're looking at the second house, because it's like, what can you do? And the sun is very creative and very positive, so that can just, in general, infuse your financial life with a lot of nice energy. On the 3rd, Mars goes into our sign, which is really great because that means that Mars has been in the 12th house. And now that I think about it, I wasn't even paying attention, but that makes perfect sense because here I am sitting here recording this right before the winter solstice. And when you have plants in the 12th house, you may feel like dragging, even though I've had my solar return, as have most of you. And so the sun is coming out of that 12th house. Mars is a very driving force. Mars leads us into taking action. So we want Mars to get out of that 12th house into the first house. Even the second house isn't too shabby, but right now it's going to be in the first house. The first house can even be your body, so you may be feeling like inexplicably injected with energy, like you want to work out. And it doesn't have to be anything formal, but you just may feel more active in general and just have more energy in general. Mars in Sagittarius for everybody is kind of like that. I think of Mars as the warrior, being the god of war. So the warrior of truth, of what is good and just in this world. And so you can take that in whatever direction appeals to you. A lot of Sages, I think, have the reputation of being quite preachy and, kind of sanctimonious sometimes. That we think that we're the moral authority and stuff like that. And this is not going to help matters, but it does give you that sense of being on a mission, I would say. And, all fire signs love to have a cause that they're fighting for. So that could also come into play. On the 10th, we have a lunar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. This is going to be Cancer for Sagittarians is the 8th house. Lunar eclipse. So there could be some kind of major revelation about something that has been, I would say, buried within yourself. The 8th house is a psychological house. It's the house of the shadow, It's a house of death. So, people always automatically think of physical death and all that stuff. But you know what? It's much more likely that this is going to be personal to you, related to transformation. This is really what the eighth house is in a nutshell, a house of transformation. I mean, I guess I can't just limit it to one particular keyword, but it's definitely a big part of it. And it's something where I feel like this can have the effect of allowing you to release something that you have been obsessed with. I mean, this is a house of obsessions. It's funny because the 12th house and the 8th house, they're both water houses. The 12th house is ruled by Pisces. And I've seen, keywords in different, information that has the 8th house also about addictions, just like the 12th house. But what I think is the difference or the distinction is that the 8th house is kind of like these things that are obsessions or our lower nature, that is kind of like the shadow that we hide from the world, those compulsive behaviors that are coming from this kind of a battle with ourselves about power, because, and also related to trauma that we're trying to block out, because the 12th house to me can even be more past life influences that we just keep repeating certain patterns, or as the Buddhists would call them, samskaras, that are like grooves of habit, habitual behaviors. And the eighth house to me is more psychological, in terms of how we perceive this world. The 12th house to me is more of the spiritual dimension than this particular realm. It's not really of this world. But the eighth house is, how do we navigate this world when we have all this, stuff that is underneath the surface that needs to be integrated, the shadow that needs to be integrated within our greater self, and then we can make sense of it. And then these behaviors that we undertake, I feel like addiction is a form of obsessive compulsive disorder, where a person becomes obsessed with a certain substance, a certain, like the ritual of that, like for instance the whole thing of, if you have a drug addiction, you have to score it, you have to prepare the drugs. It's a whole thing. And it distracts the person from their pain. It gives them another focus. And so all of these things, the thing about the lunar eclipse that I really love is that it really isn't about heavy lifting on our parts. It's like we get this divine grace or something, I would call it, where it just allows us to release. The main thing is to have intention and awareness in your life, and then you won't be, just like the reptilian brain that just, reacts to things without even thinking and maybe resists change. The lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, these can be, major change agents that we really don't have any ability to control at the micro level, where we try to micromanage life. On the same day, on the 10th of January, Uranus goes direct at 2 degrees of Taurus. For Sag, Uranus is the 6th house of health and work. By the way, this is a general forecast to make it easier for me. I'm not going to be dividing it into the three decanates of each sign. That would be too confusing for me. So basically what this can boil down to is Uranus in the sixth house for some people means that for the next 7 years, be prepared to have a lot of twists and turns when it comes to your service to the world, where you may be like doing contract work. There's another term like in the retail industry, they have a term called the floater, who goes to different, branches of a store and works whenever they need them to. When I was working retail, that was something that I really wanted to do because I thought it would be a lot better to go to different stores than just to be stuck in one store. Because then you can kind of, escape all the energy vampires a lot more frequently. And what else? I mean, it can be like even the type of work that you're doing can be more intuitive. Uranus would be connected to that sort of energy healing and even like psychic types of job title, or I look at more as a service. The 10th house is more of the job title, I would think. I don't know. But in any case, the other thing is technology is associated with Uranus. So perhaps working from home, working online, or at least having flex time where you are allowed to work sometimes in the week from home. So introducing technology into your workspace or even at home. And that for Sag would be ideal because we love our freedom. And we, the more that we can have options if we're working for other people, the better. It can even, along those lines, I could see it really pushing you to work for somebody else. I'm sorry, work for yourself. That's what I meant to say, the exact opposite. Because Uranus doesn't want to conform. It's very individualistic, and you may be feeling much more like that, and then that would spur you on to working for yourself and possibly being a digital nomad. On the 13th, Venus goes into Pisces. This means that for almost half the month, Venus is in Aquarius, which is that third house for Sag, and Venus in the third can be, having harmony with brothers and sisters or neighbors, and that implies that maybe at some point there was a little bit of friction, but that's no more. Venus in the third can be earning money through writing projects, the media, and of course we could talk about the internet for the third house as well. It can also be maybe joining an online dating service and meeting people or one person through that, meeting people through your meeting somebody in your local area could be a Venus in Pisces, like a romantic partner. And then when Venus goes into that fourth house on the 13th, it can have some kind of connection with real estate or the mother, that the mother is giving you money for some reason, or maybe it's connected to the mother and real estate, some kind of inheritance, some kind of property that is being divided up or something along those lines. Because one thing I should have said is that the lunar eclipse in the 8th house, this is the house of inheritance. It's the house of shared resources, but also the house of death. So you combine those two. Money from death is inheritance. So it can be something connected to real estate and money, but it can also be sprucing up your living environment. Putting a coat of paint on the wall, new coat of paint, maybe a different color, buying new buying new furniture, who knows, something like that. And because Venus loves luxury, you may be willing to spend money on these things. You're not like just watching your pennies where this is concerned. You're willing to invest in making something look nice, your living environment. On the 16th, Mercury goes into Aquarius. So Mercury has been in that second house of earned income along with the sun. And when Mercury is in the second house, it's maybe doing research or, finding ways to increase the person's income, perhaps through multiple income streams, just ideas, kind of brainstorming about these things, crunching the numbers. And then Mercury goes into Aquarius, into that third house, and it's in its own house. This is Gemini's house in the universal chart. So this can be really great for somebody who is a writer. I think especially with writing, because Mercury wants to communicate, and in the third, it's aligned with, what it represents. So it's really cooperating in that sense. You may be in more contact with siblings than you have in the recent past. Again, Venus has been in that third house. That might have been some kind of icebreaker or something that, made you have a truce with one or more of them. And of course, we have Venus then going into the fourth house with the mother. And so it could have some family ties here. And so perhaps now you're getting involved with them a little bit more than you have in recent months or years. And then on the 20th, the sun goes into Aquarius. So the sun joins Mercury into that mental house. And you may be like really doing things that promote yourself in a sense that I look at the third house as the internet too. I mean, the 11th house and the third house can both represent the internet, because this is our avenue of communication in 2019, 2020. I'm kind of giving away that I'm recording this in 2019, I guess, but I should have just said 2020. But, it really is. And it may also be when the sun goes into that third house that you're seeing yourself as a writer, because the sun is your sense of self. And what I mean by that is, if you're somebody who is not a professional writer, you just have a dream to be published, and these days it could even be self-published, but to be a successful writer. Sometimes when we have these dreams and it's kind of like we're kind of isolated because we have nobody that is like promoting us or taking us under their wing, it can feel like we're delusional, that we're just sitting alone. If we're writing something, that, who's going to read this? Who's going to care about this? And yet you have to embody that sense of yourself as whatever it is that you're aspiring to be before you get there. You can't just like continuously doubt yourself. And the sun gives confidence. So it may boost your sense of self-esteem as a writer, or confidence as a writer. So anyway, there's that. And then on the 24th, there's a new moon in this sector at 4 degrees of Aquarius. One thing I didn't say is that the third house can also be training that you receive. Ninth house, which Sag rules, is college level, academic stuff and abstract knowledge. This is more constructive knowledge. So it could be like training, an apprenticeship, something along those lines that you're beginning. And so you could be trying to enhance your skills. I refuse to say skill set. I just can't. I just can't. But anyway, you know what I mean. And you may decide to embark upon a new novel. The great American novel, the great Australian novel. I don't know if they use that all over the world, but yeah, just something along those lines, beginning something new that has a third house connotation. Okay, that's what I have for you, Sag. I hope that this resonated, or it seems like it could possibly resonate. If you would like me to look at your individual chart, not this generalized thing, I have a link to my website below, rainamoonastrology.com. Take care. Bye.